again. It's the Fun Comic Book Guy, and this is yet another comic book review. The books I'm going to review are from the recent pull list that I had from last Wednesday, January 26th, 2022. So, got about a dozen comics to go through. We'll end with the pick of the week, but we're going to start with a couple of books that didn't quite make the grade and work our way towards that pick. So let's get started. First book up is Flash 778 by Jeremy Adams and art by Fernando Passarin. Sorry if I get the names wrong, but this is continuing on the Eclipso arc. It was okay. There are two stories going on here. One is, of course, with Barry fighting Eclipso, double crosses, working with other magical superheroes, including Constantine. The writing was okay. Some of the quips fell flat. The B story is a little bit more interesting. That includes Wally's kids, and it involves a kidnapping, possible human trafficking or meta-human trafficking, I should say, a female costume design that would make the 90s blush, and I don't see where this is fitting in. It felt like they're trying to tell two stories in one comic book and have them matter equally. It just wasn't working out. Gave this one a C minus. If it continues on like this, I may actually drop this book, and that's disheartening because I really do like The Flash, but we'll see how it goes. Part of the problems with that book, as with a little bit of this book, is that the narrative involved journaling. And here in Action Comics 1039, by Philip Kennedy Johnson and art by Riccardo Federici, also includes a continuation of a storyline. In this case, we're looking at the Warworld saga involving Superman, whose powers have been diminished. He has already lost to Mongol, and he is in a type of Colosseum arena fighting for his life. The story didn't progress that much. It is Superman or Clark, narrating his findings, what he's noticing about some of the other prisoners there. It was an okay story. The Martian Manhunter story wasn't that much better. Not something that was keeping my interest too much. I do hope that this does pick up and soon. Again, not a disaster, but I think could have been a little bit better. Definitely not as good as some of the previous issues. Definitely gave it a C. Next up in DC, it was, or is, DC versus Vampires number 4 of 12, written by Matthew Rosenberg and art by Otto Schmidt. This is continuing the story of the superheroes of the DC Universe, one by one or two by two, falling into the realm of vampirism. It's actually been a kind of fun story. It does have a very, very interesting and almost comedic scene between Batman and Green Arrow, in which case they're both fighting each other and thinking that the other one is a vampire. But things do start to heat up towards the end. I am going to keep reading this book. I hope that it does keep my interest. We're only about a third of the way through the story. It'll be interesting to see how it starts to heat up and wrap up, because the heroes are falling a lot. Gave that one a B. And now we're moving on into Marvel Amazing Spider-Man, number 87, written by Jed MacKay, art by Carlos Gomez. Here we have Peter. Basically, he's out of the hospital, but he's still a little too weak or unfit to really take the role of Spider-Man back. Ben Reilly's still out there. There's a couple of mentions throughout of what's happening with the Beyond Corporation, and understanding the ruthlessness that they may actually be operating under, and some of the other secrets that they're hiding. Very good scenes actually with Ben. Some pretty good scenes with Peter, as he is basically retraining to catch criminals and such, and not always winning or succeeding. It was, again, okay. The Beyond storyline I know is coming to an end shortly. I will be glad when we're out of it, but I think that over the other arcs, this has probably been one of the more consistently fine storylines. But we'll see what happens over the next couple of issues. This is actually, the start of the return of Peter Parker. I gave this one a B. I thought that, again, the writing, the art, everything was pretty good, satisfactory. All right. Next up, we have XMen #7, written by Jerry Duggan and art by Pepe Larraz. I think I got that name right. Here we continue the story of Captain Krakoa and how that ties into Cyclops', spoiler alert, recent death, but not just any type of death, a death that is very public, very well known, and not one that he can hide. He can't be seen dead in the middle of New York City and then come walking back, an hour later. So this is definitely trying to address the resurrection issues that keep cropping up. And overall, again, the story, really continuing on that theme. We, of course, find out who is Captain Krakoa. And we know now that the resurrection has started to really cause more issues than it has been resolving. Gave this one a nice solid B. Again, artwork was fine. The writing was fine. There were a couple of little lulls here and there that changed the pacing of the story a little bit, but still been a pretty good book. From the X-Men to the God of Hammers, Thor #21 by Donny Cates and art by Nick Klein. We are continuing the God of Hammers storyline. This, I think, is part 3 of 5. So we're at the midpoint. Last issue, we found out who was the God of Hammers in a climactic final full-page scene. And here we find out who's behind the God of Hammers in a full-page epic final scene. Thor and Odin go against the God of Hammers, who at one point really shows their true powers by being thrown to beyond the end of the universe and coming back and hitting hard. This is, once again, foe after foe that has come after Thor. This one is really giving him a beating, not just him, but Odin and others as well. We need to see how this wraps up. This is probably going to become part of a larger story. I don't think that some of the things that they've alluded to with things that are happening in the sun are going to be uncovered and resolved in the next 2 issues. But I think it is something that might be tying into something much larger in the MCU. Art was great. Writing was, Donny Cates continues to be a fantastic writer. I gave this one an A-. Moving on to other Avengers. Avengers Forever #2. This is continuing our understanding of what is happening across the multiverse. It focuses on I believe it is now the Black Skull is his name. It's Red Skull, who's been venomized from another universe. And the continued torture of Ghost Rider. And Robbie Reyes undergoes horrific conditions in order to be broken by the Black Skull. It is very, very. It was a pretty tough read, I would say. Not in a bad way. Not in a way that the writing by Jason Aaron or that had been mired by the art of Aaron Cooter. The book is solid. It's just tough. It's torture. Not to read what's happening to Robbie. So he goes through a lot, and he eventually, spoiler alert, does break. We know that there are going to be some other heroes that are in this universe that are going to come and try to get him out and help him, but this is something that I think is going to live on with Robbie beyond this book. He'll more than likely get back to the 616, but this was a pretty tough chapter to read. Still, the writing, the art, I think was great. Gave it an A-. Really good book. Devil's Reign #3 by Chip Zdarsky and art by Marco Cicchetto. I more than likely butchered that name. But in this one, we are really at the midpoint of this series, this event. We see that Cage is running for mayor against Wilson Fisk. It is understood that Wilson must be using the Purple Man to affect the voter sentiment to this heroes initiative, and all hell breaks loose by the end. This is one of these things that towards the end of the book, you're just like, I have no idea how they're going to get out of this mess. Essentially, the Thunderbolts come, find our Avengers heroes, and including former Avengers and current Avengers, and it does not look good for them. Overall, it's again continuing the story. It is very reminiscent of some of the elements that I found from Civil War and the Initiative. Wilson Fisk continues to be a powerhouse. Octavius is monstrously evil, I think, in this one, much more so than he's been in some of the other books. And overall, I couldn't quite give it an A. I gave it like a B+. Again, some of the pacing could have worked out, but people are getting hurt badly, and this is no exception. And this is not something that, again, I think will be swept under the rug in a couple of months. And when the series ends, it's going to be like, oh yeah, don't you remember that time when there are going to be characters that are going to be forever be changed, I think, because of this. So if you aren't reading it, now is a good time to catch up and get to this midpoint. The next two books, of course, are related, and you may be understanding where I'm going to go with the next book. The XLives of Wolverine #1, and the X-Deaths of Wolverine #1, which I'll show in just a moment, both of which have been written by Benjamin Percy. The art for the XLives is Joshua Cassara. This, I didn't know what to expect. I thought that this was going to be possibly like another look back at all the things that Wolverine has done. Look at the many iterations that he's gone through, from a young boy through a World War II fighter to the Weapon X program, etc., Logan, all those things. And this really focused on a storyline in which Omega Red is heading back in time, trying to kill Charles Xavier at birth, literally. So Logan is sent back in time telepathically to fight Omega Red. It is a gruesome scene as the two go at it, as Omega Red basically takes over body after body of people around the Xavier mansion, and as Charles is being born. So overall, again, I was not quite expecting it, but again, it was still a tribute to where Wolverine was at the time and his possible involvement now in the very, very foundation of the X-Men, with stopping Omega Red before he could kill Charles Xavier. Omega Red is still out there, and I'm sure we'll be seeing more of him. So very interested to see where this book goes. I think maybe we'll be seeing other little points in Logan's life throughout history. It wouldn't surprise me if, we see a World War II incident, or maybe even something in the future. So actually, it was quite a good read. I gave this one an A-. The art was phenomenal. I loved it. And the writing actually kept my interest. It was a pretty quick read, but you never felt lost. It didn't bombard you with too much information. It was just a simple, you got to save Charles Xavier at birth story. Very good. The Excess of Wolverine is another story. Literally another story. It's not in the same prose or even really dealing too much with Wolverine up until the end, when something comes out of the resurrection chamber, and it does begin with the W. We still don't know quite what it is, but Wolverine is there maybe. But the majority of the story deals with Moira, following the events of Inferno, and her being on the run from Mystique and others around the world, as she tries to escape and possibly be depowered. She doesn't have a resurrection capability. Maybe she will. But whatever the case, there are people still after her. And that is a little bothersome to me. I did not think that this book would be about that. Just like the previous book, I thought would be kind of a homage and a look back or look forward to things that Wolverine has done. This, I thought, would be focusing on the times when he has failed. Instead, it's a continuation of Inferno. And while I really like this book, I'm a little perturbed with the idea that this really is a continuation of Inferno. And having really liked the Inferno event, if I had found out later on that, and not had read this book and found out later on that this book continued on the story of what happened to Moira, and I didn't know about it until this book was out of print or now in second print, I probably would have been a bit taken aback and a little angry, thinking that, that storyline got continued in a book with this title. So overall, again, still very good. Again, Benjamin Percy is the author. Federico Visconti did the art. Very good job. Another A- in my book. Probably two of the best Marvel books that came out last week. The next book from Boom Studios, House of Slaughter #4. This was a fantastic look into the operations of the House of Slaughter, finding out what Jace's family's background was like, what the Butcher House, as some have called it, its origins. It was riveting. Really good. Of course, there's a monster death scene. There's history. There's revenge. There's so much packed into this. By the end of it, you think you've read a 64-page trade paperback, but it's really just packed into one issue. The writing's phenomenal. The human element is there. It's a really great book. I'm sure that if you read this without knowing anything about something is killing the children, it might be a little bit lost, but you know what? I think you could still do it. You could still figure things out, and you do find out, I believe, why Jace is on the run and why he is to be killed. But it is out of an act of revenge against the House of Slaughter for things that they did to his family. So, really good book. If you're not reading this, I do strongly recommend picking it up. Hopefully the issues are still out there. You can probably find them back issues, but if you pick this up, you might be a bit lost without reading the first 3. This would have been, up until this next book that I read, this was going to be the pick of the week. But there's one book that beat it, just by a little. This got an A minus. Batman, One Dark Night. Oh, sorry. Yes, One Dark Night. I keep calling it something else. But One Dark Night, magazine format, written and artwork done by Jock. This is, I think, the variant cover. I requested that on the pull list. The regular cover itself is great, but this one I thought was pretty amazing. This goes back to this first issue, and I don't know how long the series is going to be, but there's definitely going to be an issue 2 from DC Black Label. Looks at Batman during what is going to be an already complicated prisoner transport of EMP from Arkham Asylum to Blackgate Prison on an extremely hot day where crime is rising, and now there's a conspiracy of gangs who are trying to thwart this prisoner transport, and they succeed, and EMP does his thing, hence becoming One Dark Night. And it is set up now that Batman needs to get EMP still to Blackgate Prison as the gangs are approaching him. There's subplot to this involving Commissioner Gordon and a number of other characters involving his role in allowing kind of the superhuman and villain population to kind of go around, not being as reprimanded as they should be, not being as in control as others feel that he should be. There's great dialogue in this. I think Batman is written well. The artwork is great. There are scenes in here which are just, I would just love to have them as posters on my wall. This I thought was a fantastic Batman book, considering that I had some big disappointments in the past couple of Batman books, but here with this book here, I thought this is the type of Batman that I like. You know, the chips are down, the gangs are the gangs are coming for him, and he's already injured. Alfred is still alive in this universe here, but his communication's been lost due to the EMP. So much is going on. This is definitely going to be one of those, I hope to be one of those great books that goes along with like The Long Halloween and others. This I gave a solid A. Please pick this book up if you could still find it. And yeah, this is my pick of the week. So that being said, again, it was actually quite a good week for comics. Most of the books I read, I was entertained by. Storylines progressed. Some of them had some issues with, but we'll see how they pan out over the next month. So that being said, those are my reviews. Those are my opinions. If you have any comments, suggestions, or opinions of your own on the comics I read or didn't read, mark them down in the description below. In the comments below. But that being said, hopefully you're having a good time with your comics. Be well, and I will see you again with another Funko, comic, or book review or haul. Thank you.